Sandy, you're a parent of a 15-year-old. That's amazing. Wow, that is like that's like goals. Douglas, you're a prospecting parent and married. All the best. It's one of the best things that could happen to the marriage institution. One of the most challenging, but one of the best. I'm believing we're going to all of us learn from one another. So maybe I will introduce myself in respect to today's live. My name is Olive Nyambura. I am also a parent of 2 boys, and I do volunteer as a mentor for children. I just have a passion for children and the cases of sexual abuse and neglect, and the things that has just exposed our children, the children that we get to mentor and talk to in our society, are things that are with us. They are things that sometimes as a parent, they may look normal if you're not told. They may look normal, you may not be prepared, you may not even think that your child is in an environment that could lead him or her being abused, but it's happening. But then even worse still is that the children don't feel safe enough to tell us as their parent that this is what is happening. So this platform, actually the Mommy Mentor platform, is just for us to learn as parents, educate one another, and so that we can become better parents. I keep saying that a good parent is not born. You are made by the things that you commit to learning and to improving yourself. There is always knowledge. As the world is changing so fast, there is always knowledge that is coming in that can also help us to be better parents. So all is not gone, and I would want us to just say a word of prayer before we start, and as others are joining us, to just commit the session to God. So Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening. We thank you for allowing us to have a session this evening. Thank you for availing us for this life, God. And I know that you have a lot that you want to teach us as parents, because you want us to become better parents, oh God, because you want us to take good care of the children that you've put into our custody, King of all glory. I pray that the life will go well. I pray that you quicken the step of our counselor, oh Jehovah, King of all glory. I pray that we're going to have light throughout. There will be no problem with internet connection, oh God. And I pray for all of us, the questions that you have come with in mind and what we want to learn, oh God. I pray that you know our individual needs and you know what we are here for. So I pray that you teach us, oh God, as parents, teach us, oh God, and give us clear ways and instruction in areas where things are confusing or hazy, oh God, that we may be best parents, we may be the best stewards to the gift of children that you've placed into our lives. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen. Everybody say amen, amen, amen. So maybe I'll start by just defining what we're looking to tackle in terms of sexual abuse. This is in any form of abuse, sexual activity, actually, sorry. So sexual abuse is any form of a sexual activity with a child by an adult or another child who probably is older than them, obviously, who has power over them. So when you're talking about abuse, it's not just to the extent of rape, but any other sexual activity that could be happening between an adult and a child, or between a child and another child who has power over them. Most common what we've had is of siblings, older siblings just, abusing younger siblings. So this could include, not limited to, but could include kissing and the touching of private parts. And also these were strange, but this has come up a lot, and especially among children, is that children are exposing one another to pornographic content. So one child knows, probably the older brother or the older sister, and then they watch with a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, and that becomes the platform in which abuse will enter into the family. So there's also verbally pressurizing the child, and also threatening them. If they don't do something to them, you're going to do something to them, just pressuring them to have sex. There's also the taking of photos of their private parts, and also asking, if an adult is asking a child to send them photos of their private parts. There's a case that we encountered in school. This was with a class 7 before the 844 was over, the class 7 and class 6 children who we were talking to, these children had they don't have phones. They don't have phone, but they had an adult who they had met on the online platform. They have gotten their phone number, and so they are chatting on WhatsApp. So it starts as a friendly conversation, then it escalates to this adult asking them to send, it was a man asking this girl in class 7 to send him her nudes. And so because the girl did not have a phone, what she would do, because this is what she explained to us, what would happen is that she would take her mom's phone, go to the toilet, take the photos, send to the guy, then delete that conversation. So the mom has no idea what happens. You just know that when I get home, my child gets my phone from my bag and she goes to play games, or she goes to do homework, or whatever excuse that she gives. But this is what was happening, and we were told that by 2 girls. And then you realized, wow, class 7 is about 11, 12 years, 13 years. So it's happening, and that also is another form of sexual abuse. So as I was preparing for this live, there is some statistics that are found based on the Kenyan our Kenyan society that were shocking, and I just want to give you some of the statistics. And one which I found very shocking, this was a study done in Nairobi, and I think Nairobi is a good representation of the country. I know, we saw yesterday, I think in news, where we saw that children in more remote areas are more exposed to sexual abuse and teen pregnancies than those in Nairobi. So the case represented in Nairobi could actually even be a mild representation of what is happening in our country, but we just use Nairobi for a scenario. So some of the facts were that one out of every 7 children is going to be sexually abused before they are the age of 18 years. 1 out of 7 children. So you can imagine, if you live in a flat with 14 children, 2 of those children, before they get to 18 years, they will be abused. More shocking is that before they get to the age of 12, it's 1 out of 3 girls will be abused. That means if you are in your daughter's school, there are 12 girls, there is the probability that 4 of them are going to be abused before they go to junior high. And then for the boys, it's 1 out of 5 before they are 12 years. Something else that was shocking was that 90% of this abuse will happen by people you as a parent and the child know. 90%, meaning it will be done by friends, it will be done by a relative, it will be done by a caregiver, it will be done by the teacher, it will be done by the coach, it will be done by a neighbor's child, the brother, the sister. 90% of the cases of sexual abuse are done by either family, relatives, or a caregiver. Then what was interesting is they also did a study on the caregivers of the children who were abused, and 40%, which is the highest, of children who are abused are children who are in families where they are raised by both parents, not a single parent home. Children who are raised in homes with both parents have the highest rate of abuse. And this is interesting, though I've seen it again, because in our mentoring sessions also, children who are neglected and children who feel there is no affection and who feel there is no connection between their parents and them are children who are raised in a family that has both parents, which is interesting. I think one parent thinks that the other one is going to connect with the child, and so there's no one ends up doing it. So 40% of children who are abused are actually in families that have both parents. So imagine nobody talks, anyone thinks the other one is doing the work, but ends up that no one is talking to the child and no one is protecting. They're actually the most vulnerable children, because if a child cannot emotionally connect with their parent, that means even when things are changing, the parent will not realize, and the child is also not comfortable to communicate that to the children. The next percentage was in homes where a child is raised by a single mom at 28%. And interesting enough, those who are raised by single dads the protection, I think the layer of protection is too high. It's only 2% of children raised only by fathers who are abused. In terms of perpetrators, the guys who do the abuse, 30% are relatives, uncles, aunties, so and so. 20%, which is actually a big percentage, if you ask me, 20% happened by other minors. That would mean there's an older cousin who came to visit over the holiday, or we had gone to Ushago and it happened. It's a brother, it's a sister who abused them. 20% is actually a high number of abuse. Then 15% is by workers. Then the other percent is by visitors, somebody who comes to visit one of a close friend, and the other one is by strangers. Funny enough, strangers only cover 20% also. Then in terms of places where children are abused, this was also very surprising. 50% of child abuse happens in the child's home. The child will be abused in your home, and we're going to tackle why this happens, that it happens right under our nose. It happens 50%, like half of the cases, they will happen right under your nose, in that house you parent. Then 22% will happen at a neighbor's house, where they go for sleepover, where you leave them to be taken care of as you rush to the market and so on. 13% will happen in your neighborhood, the area where they play, where they go to be coached for football, where they go to learn music. Then 9% happens in school, and then the other percent is anywhere else, especially now when a stranger is involved. Good news is that 95% of sexual abuse cases are preventable if only we are knowledgeable enough, and we are aware of what to look out for, we are aware of what to do, we are aware of the questions to ask, and we are aware of who to report to and even how to protect our children. If the parent is aware, then you raise a child who is also very aware. So I'm also checking on my counselor. Okay, she's telling me she's almost sawa. So as we're waiting for her, we've seen the statistics of what's happening. We've said good news is that 95% of this can be prevented if only we have the right information, we have the right knowledge, and we are aware of our circumstances. So if 50% of cases of abuse will happen in our home, and if 38% will be done by our relatives and caregivers and families, how does it get to that point? Because sexual abuse doesn't happen. There's a day where it starts, where the actual activity starts, but before that, not when it starts. It starts with the process of whereby the perpetrator or the offender trains the child to accept it. And this is a process that we call grooming. And so grooming is just the method that the offender will use to build the trust with a child, and not just the child, and the adult. So the offender will groom the child and the adult, you as the parent, whether you're the father or the mother or the caregiver, the aunt or the uncle, or you've adopted, whatever. If you're the caregiver, the offender then just wake up and do it. He grooms the child and grooms the adult in order to gain access to them, and also to gain time alone with them, to gain their trust. And by the trust, they gain access to the child. So if it's a visitor, if it's your friend, they'll gain your trust, and then you will give them time alone with a child for them to do that. And grooming, depending with different scenarios, could take days, could take months, and there are children who say it has even taken years. And especially in cases where it has been done by a relative, and in worst case scenarios that I've had, it's whereby the abuse has been done by the child's father. And so the grooming starts from when they are 5 and the child is probably raped at 13. But before we got to the actual rape, there were things that led to that and made the family comfortable for them to be together. There were signs, yes, that were ignored. And so, the child ended up being abused. I remember I shared on my page about a girl who was abused by her pediatrician, a pediatrician who had helped the mom give birth to her, seen the child grow until when she's going to join Form 1. And so the mom, because she trusted this pediatrician, sends the child to the hospital without she didn't accompany the child, and I don't want to use she, it's either the dad could also have gone, but in this case the child went alone, and so the doctor took advantage and raped this 13-year-old. That medical examination that you're supposed to go get before you join Form 1. That instant, you can imagine she was now 13 years old from when she was born. There are things this doctor had been doing that the parents now trusted him completely, and yet he ended up raping the child. So that's what we call the grooming process. It happens to the child, and so the offender also grooms the parent, so that the parent or the caregiver can now trust him and then allow him or her to be left alone with the child. So there are manipulative behaviors that I would just want to highlight that the offender could use just to gain trust and to gain access. There is praising them, saying good things about the child, always appearing to defend them when there is a mistake that has happened. The perpetrator will always be on the side of the child. There will be excessive giving of gifts, so for example, and then they also take advantage of the areas that they see there is a weakness or there are gaps in the family. So if this child is, let's say, poor in academics, and so this is a tutor, so they come to your house and you leave them the whole Saturday to just train the child and help them with their academics. So they take advantage of those loopholes that they see that the parents have left, and that's what they exploit to become the pillar for what the parent is not able to do. That's also a way of just grooming both the child and the parent. So there are common patterns that happen when the perpetrator is trying to groom the child and the parent, and one of these is how they select. The perpetrator doesn't just go for any child. There is how they look for who the child to target, and this will be a child who is easily accessible. So probably a child whose parents are very busy, whose parents are very trusting, and whose parents, reading by the body language, they are not always concerned. And sometimes it could be, yes, the child is easy to access, or sometimes it's perceived vulnerability. So that could mean maybe the shamba boys, so the child trying to talk to the dad, trying to report that he had done something, and then the dad was on the phone and then he brushed it off. So this shamba boy will perceive that this father is not concerned when the child wants to report, that the child doesn't have a voice with the parents. So it's not all the cases that your child is actually easy to access. Sometimes the perpetrator will just read the wrong signs and come for your child. And as we've said, these are people who are in our environment, our very close circle of friends and people we interact with. So they are able to see the signs. They're able to see a child who is emotionally neglected. They're able to see a parent who compensates for time away with money. And so to this child, they'll just offer to be their friend, to be doing homework together, to catch a movie together, to travel with your children. They'll just look for a loophole. The second thing they do is once they gain access is to try and isolate the victim, using words like, don't worry, if your mom won't do this for you, I will. If your dad doesn't teach you football, I will. If your mom doesn't do homework for you, then I will help. They try to isolate the child from their caregivers and even from their families, other family members, or even their friends. So maybe a case I've seen is that this child loved football, and they weren't that good in football. So of course, in every game or in every circle, there are those who are good at the craft and others are not. So this child was just getting into the craft, and since he was not so good, he always felt bad when others were being chosen. They used to pick, even as guys when we were young, they used to pick side, and then you'd pick the best in the game, and so they are the ones who are always the last to be chosen. So this child was always the last because they were not so good at the craft, at the sport. And so the coach took advantage, like it was like, if no one else is picking you, don't worry. After the others have gone home, you can be left for an hour. We do extra training. I see you're good in this, but this is what is lacking. So I'm going to help you catch up in this. And in that way, the child developed trust to this coach, and the parent also trusted this coach. And Yes, he ended up being the abuser. So they try to isolate the victim from other people and just build a world for them whereby they are the only one who understand them and who are always there for them, and the one they can always care about, who care for them, and everyone else is not concerned. The next stage is that they try to bring in the aspects of keeping secrets and treating them in a special way. So what happens is that we'll use the case of the doctor and the coach, is that they'll start gifting the child. You know, they did just a very small thing, which is in a good way. You need to appreciate the child when they have done well, but they will go overboard. You know, they'll give a gift where it's not necessary, it's not a birthday, it's nothing major, but they'll find opportunity to gift them. They'll find opportunity to just sit with them and even share secrets with them. You know, you tell them, you know, I've been struggling with these and these, and I have no one else to talk to, but of late during our coaching session, you've become so close, I feel like you're my friend. And so the child also starts feeling like they are important to this offender, like they mean something to them. So the offender kind of creates an environment where they are now sharing secrets, and the child is told that what I'm telling you, you should not tell your parents, you should not tell other people. This is very private to me, this is very special to me, so I need you to keep it to yourself. So they introduce the aspect of keeping secrets. And in these, it seems very seamless, because why would a child come tell you about their coach having a fight with their wife? You know, like as a parent, really doesn't concern you. And so even a child will argue, you know what, I need to keep his secret, he's going through a rough patch. Then the other thing they do after they have established an environment where it's okay to keep secrets and secrets can be kept between the two of them, then they will desensitize touch and discussion of sexual topics. So in secrets lead to an emotional connection whereby he'll be vulnerable, and the child will need to hug them or just hold their hand. You know, when he's pretending to be weak, he'll hold their hand, he'll try to hug them a bit longer than the usual, and then you make them feel like it's actually okay, we are doing this for comfort. After they have desensitized touch is at most children at this point will have their antennas raised and like, no, that's a bit off, but the offender will confirm to them that this is actually okay, this is just you trying to comfort me. And then once they are able to comfort them and touch, they have broken now the barrier of touch, then they introduce the topic of discussing sexual topics. You know, like for the case that I'm saying, for the coach, it started with the wife was neglecting him, then he now became open that the wife doesn't allow him to touch her, so he's sexually deprived, and how he feels as a man, and now this boy is a teenager. If you understand, like those are topics that a child should not even be, you cannot come to a child with such topic. But then once the topic becomes common and he shows the child that it's okay to discuss that topic, he's just creating a room for them. You remember, we are now secret, we can now touch, and now this has become a prime topic that we can discuss and comfort one another. So the simple hugs will escalate to massages, and then to touching, and then to, in most cases, the actual sexual activity. And before that, for the case of the coach, what happens is it went to watching pornography, because now the man was like, you know, when my wife denies me, I console myself with watching pornography. Now they started watching pornography, then it escalated now to the actual sexual abuse. And this child at this time, there were so many signs and times he wanted to tell someone else, but he always felt like I need to protect him. I need to protect his vulnerability. And after all, he's the I'm the only friend that he has. So that's basically the pattern they use. And once the sexual abuse, now the literal abuse now is happening, the final step is usually the abuser threatening the child that if you report this, I'm going to do this to you, or if you report this, no one is going to believe you, or if you report this, seeing that, you know, you guys have employed me, my family will suffer, you don't want me to die, you don't want my children not to go to school. Because there are actually cases where the abuser is a grown man, 45 years, abusing a 13-year-old girl. And this man was telling him, when your parents fire me, no one else will employ me, and that would mean my children will stop going to school. And you do not want to be that mean. You don't want, just because you live in a big house, you can't be so mean that you want my children now not to go to school. So they will make the child feel guilty or threaten them. And so that will just ensure that the offense or the abuse continues until when someone will learn the cycle or someone will just break the cycle. I hope you're well. It's a good thing I had prepared, but I'm really, yes, okay. She says we give her 15 minutes. Good thing I've done this. So that is, let me just take you through the next one, is that those are the common patterns of grooming. And in our modern days, that is a physical where it's a family. The other thing that you need to be worried about, especially if you have teenagers, is the online grooming. Because children after from class 8, most children are actually having phone, and they may not have their own phone. You may not have bought them as a parent, or they may not be using them in your house, but they are using it in their friend's house. They are using it when they go to their auntie and uncles. They are using it when they are in school. They just have a way of accessing these gadgets. And sometimes as parents, we have put measures on how to, just the sites that the child should go to. We've protected them. But one of the ways that these perpetrators are getting children online is through sites that are actually protected, especially gaming sites for boys, most commonly gaming sites. So what happens is that this offender will create a fake profile, fake their age, fake their, put a fake photo. And then, because in those gaming platforms, you can request a friend request. So you request a friend request, they start chatting. At first, it will start with chatting about the game, who scores better, and then now they start narrowing down to 1 or 2 people, the ones they are connecting with. And then once the friendship has been built, they now ask, can we go to a more private place where we can chat? This now escalates into the DMs and the WhatsApp conversations. And if you can have a 13-year-old knowing to delete a WhatsApp conversation, you can imagine what our children are doing. And most of us parents are on Facebook, but most children that we are bringing up actually not on Facebook. They actually even now, getting out of Instagram and leaving it for us. So most children are in Telegram or platforms that I probably am not even aware. So they have platforms where they can chat privately. And these offenders, knowing that, they will ask that, can we now leave the big group where maybe we are learning, we are gaming together, can we now chat on Telegram, just where now they are the 2 of them. And this is where they will continue the grooming as it is done in physical, just earning trust. Mostly online offenders, they will ask for the photos. They will send their photos. And worst case scenario, they will suggest meeting with the child. And we've had this, especially with high school girls. It has been in the news mostly last year, where a girl said that she was going to school, but she didn't end up going to school. She went to meet someone else because they have created a relationship so hard. They have known what the child is looking for, the gap in the child's life. Maybe it's just even affirmation, someone to tell them they are beautiful. They're in the teenage age and no one is telling them they are beautiful. Or the other girls have boyfriend and she's the only one who doesn't have a boyfriend. So she's looking for that affirmation, and when she gets it online, then she's willing to make a move. Remember, these are children. They don't have the maturity as we have as adults to be able to know that there's a red flag here or not. So online grooming is something else that we need to be very careful about. And when we say being careful, we need, as parents, we need to be very cautious to the things our children are doing, who they are talking to online, their platforms. And if you see any red flag, if you see anything worrying, you should be willing to have that hard discussion. And that hard discussion, it's hard to have it when they are 13. It's never too late, but you need to start it as early as you can. Especially even if you can at 5 years, the better. So let me just take you around how to prevent before we can go to, rather than deal with it, how can we just prevent it from happening altogether? So as a parent, one of the things you can do to prevent, do I do prevent? I had my notes. Okay, no, before I do prevent, actually I should just do prevent. Yes, so let's do prevent. What can we do as parents to prevent and even to just keep our children sensitized that these things are happening? The first and foremost is, as we should introduce and prepare our children, just have the sexual conversation in an age appropriate manner from when they are able to understand anything. From the time you start teaching them body parts, that's when we need to start that. That's when that conversation starts. You know, when you teach this the eye, nose, mouth, you should have this the penis and this the vulva. And at this point we need to call them by their right names. That's the first training that you can give to your child. Give the right name. We've grown saying susu, pupu, but by the time they are 3 or 4 years, when they are going to school, if an eye is called an eye, then a penis should remain a penis. You need to tell them the right word, so that even when anything happens and someone introduces another term, you'll be able to know that that's a red flag. I also shared a case where a 3-year-old had been taught that it's called a penis. Then one day when the mom is giving him a shower, he calls it tamu, and then the mom asks, when did it change from its name to tamu, and you know, who told you it's called tabu? And you know, the mom was able to pick that, and the child was just being groomed by someone. It could have escalated to abuse, but now the mom, because the mom had told him, now when there was a change in terms of how they refer to their private part, she was able to pick it and get to the bottom of it. The other thing is that we need to talk to our children about almost all aspects of life. Talk to them, because you see, before we get to this, before a child comes to you with a sexual topic, based just because of the society we are in, they need to really trust you and know that they can talk about anything. And so talking to your children, actively just talking to them, be it about politics, be it about the weather, be it about your job, be it about your farming, your career, that just creates an environment where the child knows there is no topic that is off limit when it comes to my parents or my caregiver. And in the same line, also listening to them. Of course, they're not going to tell you ideas that are going to make you money, but you listening to them builds their trust, and they are confident that whatever I say actually makes sense and actually matters. So they know that even though someone else tells them that what I am doing to you is normal and they are not sure, they can come talk to you, and you're going to validate whatever you're going to believe, and you're going to take it seriously what they are telling them. And of course, also in the same line about talking, just the aspect of reaffirming your child again and again, letting them know that you love them, that you care about them, and that no matter what they do in life, you're always going to love them, that there is nothing they can do to just make you not love them enough. There is no sin, even what they have, concealed, because most times when a child is being groomed, they don't know they are actually being groomed for abuse. So when the abuse happens, probably has taken 3 months or 1 year, and they are wondering, my mom has always told me to be careful about this, how do I now go tell her that it happened? Is she going to be disappointed? Most children actually fail to tell because they feel that they have let their parents down. So letting your child know that there's really nothing they can do to make you stop loving them or to make you be less committed to them, just creates an environment whereby at whatever stage the child is going to be aware that there is abuse happening, they can go to the parent. Then need to be sensitive. I always say that the love language of a child is time. How to love your child. Education is good. Material things are good. Creating an environment with where they're exposed to so many things is perfect. but there is nothing that communicates love to a child more than your time. You spending time with your child, nothing can ever replace that, because when you spend time with them, it's when you're going to know them, you're going to know their behavior, you're going to know when they are happy, when they are sad, when something is wrong, when they're just okay. And that is one of the ways that we can prevent our children from being abused, because when you know your child, then you'll know when there's a sudden change of behavior. Or you have a child who is, for example, very active, very talkative, and all of a sudden they are withdrawn, they don't want to mingle with the children, they don't want to go to play outside, they're always locked up in their room, then you'll know there is something. It's not always that the something is sexual abuse, but you'll know that that's not the nature of my child. Or you had even a quiet child who is always, orderly, those children who you never fight them, they're always on the right side of law, they are performing well, then all of a sudden you're being called to school that your child beat another child, your child is abusing, your child is sleeping in class, your child is not doing their homework. You know that that's not normal for your child, and so you start digging out more. So spend more time with your child, spend the most time you can with your child, because when you know them, it will be easy for you to pick out if anything is going amiss. And I know we are working moms, so working moms, working dads, working caregivers, what I suggest and have found practical is just being deliberate with even 30 minutes or 1 hour, even in a week if you can. At least it should be at least in a week, just having 30 minutes or 1 hour with your child and just doing whatever the child wants you to do. So maybe your child is 5 years and they'll say, today I want us to take a walk, today I want us to ride the bicycle, today just we go take pizza. Just having 1 hour where your child knows that I can always count on my parent. Maybe I don't see them every morning, maybe I don't see them every evening, but I know we are committed. There is a time where we just go and it's me and my parent, it's me and my dad, me and my mom. And just building that routine will ensure that the child knows that nothing is constant in this world, but I know my parent has chosen me. I know we have our time where it's just me and my parent. There is no phone at that time. My dad won't tell me you have to rush somewhere. My mom would tell me, Abu, I go see where your younger sister is crying. No, my mom takes care of everything else, and then this is just our 1 hour together with the child. And that really goes a long way, because sometimes it may be not possible for you to spend every other day with your child. The other thing is that try to know your child's friends, the people that your child spend most of his or her time with. How you can do this is, just in the neighborhood, the child they play with, when you're coming home, say hi to them. Just take 2 or 3 minutes. Ask them, hey, how are you? How are your parents? How is school? Which games have you been playing? What have you done today? What was happy? What made you guys happy today in school? Just try to know your friends and just create a relationship with them, because most of the time when an abuse happens, it's easier for the child to tell a friend first before they can tell an adult. And so if there's a relationship you have with their friends, then their friends, because they will not be suffering the shame that your child may be feeling, then they can come to you. And also if you see there's a behavior that you don't like in their group of friends, then you can address it immediately. For small children, maybe around 2, 3, 4, when they are growing up, you need to teach them how to honor the word stop. Like if you're playing with your child and I would think maybe you're tickling them, their child says, oh no, stop now. You need to stop as a parent. And also now when they see you stop, when they say it, they will know the power of that word. And then now when you tell them something to stop, you need to make it clear that I don't mean stop after 2 or 3 takes. I mean, when I say stop, I mean stop now. And anything I tell you to stop and you continue, then that's offensive and it needs to be reported. Because we need to start teaching our children from a very young age the words they need to use. We said, of course, the private parts. You can imagine, a young boy telling an offender, maybe even the nanny, stop touching my penis. Like, the nanny will be shocked and, you won't continue because it's not coded. If she knows that if that boy says the same words in front of a crowd or reports that to anyone else, everyone else will take action. So they will You keep your child safe because a perpetrator doesn't want to be exposed. The other major thing, especially when the child is growing up, because most cases of abuse happen between ages 8 to 15 years. So these are children who can actually understand language. They're exposed to all words, so they know. But then there's using the word secret and private. So when you're teaching your child age appropriately about sex, you need to make sure that your choice of words is the right choice of words. So sex and sexual activity is not a secret activity, it's a private activity. What that means is that you need to tell the child, just like the way you don't go to shower in the balcony or in the field when people are seeing you. That's just a private activity. And being private doesn't make it wrong. It just means that that's your space and nobody else should be touching it. So they need to know that these whatever the sexual activity, it's private and it's not a secret. So anyone else who tells you that whatever they are doing should be a secret, then that is wrong. There should be no secrets between any adult with your child, and the only private conversation that can be done is between you as a parent and your child. And so they need to know that, so that if anyone tells them that, when I touch you, do not tell your mom, do not tell your dad, they need to know that that's an antenna, that's a sign that they need to report. I had a case of someone who the offender was the guy who opens the gate, and the girl is just 5 years. And so when the children are playing, the guy has of course been friends because they play together with all the children. But this one morning, the nanny is doing something, and just for 5 minutes she can't see the girl. And when the girl comes, say, "Can I tell you something? So and so has touched me." And because the girl knows that doing that is actually wrong, and because the guy, what rang the bell for the girl is because the guy told the girl, "Do not tell mom and dad, and do not tell auntie." So the girl had been told that anyone who tells you do not tell is a first sign that you need to tell. So this 5-year-old rushed, and the first thing she did was to tell. Of course, the guy was fired, and there was the police case and everything else. But if the child knows that even the slightest move, because abuse doesn't go full blast unless it's by a stranger. By families, it doesn't go full blast. It starts pole. So once they are told, do not tell, that's a sign they need to come and tell you. Then finally, something we do mostly is when we leave our children with our neighbors and with our relatives, our children may not know how to strongly oppose our decision, but we need to learn to start listening to them. So if your child tells you, "I'm not comfortable being left at mama so and so," listen to that. Do not force them. And also something that nowadays I don't see it, but when we were children, we used to be told, go greet visitors, you need to show respect. And you'd see a child just curl in fear when a certain man gets into the house. So if you note that behavior, there's a behavior change, or your child does not want to go to a certain neighbor, a certain relative, doesn't want to go to the grandparents' home if cousin so and so is coming, then that's a red flag. And do not force your child to do it. Do not force your child to hug that uncle, to hug that auntie. Do not force them to sit next to one another. If the child says no, let their no be no. We're saying you need to demonstrate to them and then believe them when they do it from their side. Also, when when they say no, let it just be a no. If you're not so sure if you're reading a sign or it's just a normal, the child just wants to be left and play with their other friends, ask the child, do you feel safe when you are with them? Do you feel safe at your grandma? Do you feel safe at your uncles? Do you feel safe with your older brother or your nanny? Why? Or maybe when your child, especially now that we had taken them, we shall go. Some of the questions to ask is, how was the stay? Did anyone make you sad? Did anyone make you happy? What new did you learn? Just learn to ask questions around the topic and just see what you can do as a parent to gain from that. It seems like you're going to just have me for tonight, but let's just It's almost 9. Okay. So what are the signs that your child has been abused? The most common sign, of course, is the change of behavior. That's the one that is almost, that shouts the loudest, when your child starts changing their behavior. Also, when the child becomes secretive, they don't want you to get into their room, they're on the phone. When you come, they change the screen, or they turn it away, or they are, he's probably on the couch doing something on the phone. Then when they hear the door open, they jump and they want to hide. So they start being secretive, and also they want a lot of time to themselves. Abuse is not something that anyone prepares you for or teaches you how to deal with. So you can imagine when now it happens to a child who doesn't even have the ability, like as adults have, to to just go through issues. So it's also very complicated for a child. So a child may become withdrawn, trying to understand, why is it happening? Is it good? Is it bad? Should I report? Because remember, we said grooming takes time. It's not one off and then it's bad. So should I report? Is this a danger sign? Is it not? So most children are going to be withdrawn and they want to spend time on their own. But with online grooming, you'll find that they always want to be on their phone, or a message comes and they jump to reply to that, to that message. So if your child is having an older boyfriend or girlfriend, this is maybe they're in high school, and all of a sudden, watoto wa age yake, she's not going to parties where the children are. So you do not know. Yes, she's going out to hang out, but now you do not know who her friends are. That's a danger sign. At least if they are teenagers, boyfriend, girlfriend, we may define it however we define it, but let it be among their circles. When an 18-year-old is going out with a 40-year-old. Surely, as a parent, that's a danger sign. Then also, these ones who are going out, they may not call them boyfriend or girlfriend. They may not discuss with us that they are having a relationship, but you're going to see they start having more money and new items, and even their language starts to change, because now they are being fed, and now they're interacting with a social circle that is way above their age. Some will start drinking and taking drugs. That's also another sign. It could be for exploitation, of course, but also when a child is abused due to the trauma that they go through and trying to process things, they may have known that taking drugs is wrong, but the one who taught, when as parents are teaching them that taking drugs is wrong, we probably say that people take them to feel happy, and so the child will remember that people take drugs to feel high, and now they will opt to also choose the drug option to just deal with whatever they are going through. Another tell sign is that the child will now start having sexualized behavior. So you notice that the child all of a sudden is their language changes. The words they use, they now change, and they are using a language that is not appropriate for their age. You'll note they are overly touchy, and they keep touching either themselves, if there's they're below the 7, 6, 8 years, 5 years, the child will almost always be touching their private parts, or they want to touch that of another person, maybe their sibling, a younger sibling. Maybe if the child is around 10 years, they want to touch now the sibling who is 3 or 4 or 5 years. So they will see sexualized behaviors in terms of language and the activities they do, and most especially inappropriate touch and the language that they are going to start using. Then also, friends are a good option also for this. When a child is abused, they will most likely, as I said, will tell a friend before they tell a parent. It's just how children are. Also, if you can look out for hints that children leave when they are talking. When a child is talking to you, they're still children. They can really not conceal a lot of things, again, but you need to spend time with them. They will drop hints in the way they are talking. They will drop hints in the way they text their friends. They will drop hints in their notes. If they journal, they will drop hints. If they write in their diary, they're going to drop hints. So you need to just watch out for those signs, if any of that is happening, so that you can know how to hold your child and start talking to them and how to deal with it. Some children, when maybe you're a parent and you realize that your child is actually going through an abuse, you put your 1+1 and you've realized that. Most children, when asked, some will disclose fully depending on the relationship that you've cultivated over time. Some will disclose part of the information, and some will just outrightly say no. And all these, I don't want to say it's the fault of the parent, but is largely dependent on the relationship you as a parent have with your child. For the children who give full information, those are children who are very open with their parents or their caregivers, and chances are that abuse has only happened once or twice, or they have not been raped. It's probably still at the grooming stage where they're touching, and they will say it as a by the way, hey, leo uncle alifanya hivi, leo auntie alini, they will just say it as a by the way. They will not even, cause to them, they don't know sex and abuse as we know it as adult. Their minds are still processing it on a low key, so they will not know that it's a big deal that has happened, so they just say it as a by the way. But for the ones who disclose half information or refuse, these are the children that we really need to take care of and spend more time with, because they'll be the children who have really been affected by the abuse. Children who have had severe abuse rarely tell. There is a case whereby there was even a CCTV recording of the child being abused, and the child denied. The child was a boy. He was being molested by an older cousin. There was CCTV, but the child refused. But with counseling and everything, it's because the abuse was so severe, it destroyed the esteem of that child, and he just couldn't go anymore. Just couldn't put himself in an environment where anyone else doesn't think he's good enough, or would just broadcast himself as being a bad person, because that's what the child felt, that they are bad, they are not good enough, they are responsible. Why did it happen? Maybe even so and so. If cousin X knows that why did this, maybe cousin X will also do the same to me. So the children who are severely abused rarely talk, and they give half information. Also, some will give information. Maybe when you're talking, you've created an environment where you can talk, and so they will open up. But then now when you report and you want them to repeat the same with someone else so that you can take action, they will refuse. They will say that did not happen. Utajaribu kusema si uliniambia na akakupeleka na akafanya, watakata when they severe abuse, because the more people you bring, it's like you're bringing judgment and you are exposing them. Some feel like they are being ashamed, like you just putting me on a larger platform, either to be abused or to be shamed, especially ages 7, 8 years, where now they know and they have feelings. They don't want to put themselves out there. So the best thing would be, you would rather conceal and no one knows, and the limelight is not on me anymore. So the ones who have, as we're saying, the ones who disclose partially or say no are the ones, yes, who have gone through severe abuse. Also the children who the abuse is happening from a family member, because the child especially will be thinking, do I want to put enmity between my mom and the brother? Is it worth it? I know that's just sad that a child will be thinking about their adults, but it's a child. They will think that. Or if I report to my uncle and then he goes to jail, that will mean my cousin will grow up without a dad, and so they will opt not to say. So when it's done by family members, also I've said the children who blame themselves, also the children who have been threatened, like, if you tell, I'm going to kill. If you tell, I'm going to do this to your younger brother, I'm going to do this to your father, I'm going to do this to your mother. Those children, it will be harder for you to get hints that abuse is actually happening. And of course, for young children, those who can't communicate, don't have the full language to say that this and this is happening to me. So those ones you might not know. Those ones you need to observe the signs. There's a case that I encountered. This was for a boy around three years. So they have a few words, they can talk but not fully communicate what's going on. So this boy, it's on a Friday morning, so he tells the mom, leo usiende, kaa na mimi. Then the mom, of course, kwa nini unataka nikae naye? Kumbe auntie ananisumbua. Auntie anakusumbua? Then anakusumbua aje? The mom tried asking, anakuchapa, anakunyima chakula, and the nanny had only stayed for 1 week. The nanny came on Monday, and now this is happening on Friday. But the boy could not say, tu ananisumbua, and the boy went out and play. So the mom went to work. On coming back on Saturday, the mom didn't go to work. So on Saturday, the mom asked the new nanny, mtoto anasema unamsumbua, kwani what have you been doing, what has been happening? You two are not yet agreeing, because when I'm at home everything looks okay, he's eating well, he's clean, he's going to bed on time. What's happening? Then the auntie says that no, there is nothing happening, I've not seen anything happening. But now in the evening, that Saturday evening, this nanny tells the lady that if mtoto anasema namsumbua, afadhali niende. Good thing the mom tells him, you know what, tomorrow morning, it's a Sunday, I'll give you your dues for 1 week and you go. So now when another nanny comes, of course they continued asking the child, kusumbua ni nini? The child couldn't communicate. But now when the other nanny came, on the first day the nanny came, that small boy, the 3-year-old, lifted the nanny's skirt and tried to peep under. And that's when the mom knew this child, kusumbua, he did not have the right words. He did not know how to explain what was happening. But kusumbua meant that in his own 3-year-old age and mentality, something was being done that he felt was not good. So we might never know. I don't know if people remember what they did when they are 3-year-old, but it's a good thing that the boy reported and the mom took action. Because if that nanny kept on staying with the child, most definitely he would have abused the boy. Of course, the mom checked that the boy there was no penetration, there was no form of abuse, which is, we thank God. And so on that same topic, I would say that if you have a young child, from newborn actually until they can express themselves, if you can, and I pray you can, be the one to always wash your child. Don't let someone else wash your baby. Because yes, let them change the diaper, I know, because you're at work, but si lazima oge kila siku. I know you're going to quote me. You can do it after 2 days, but be the one to wash the baby. That way, for this child who can't talk, you will see if there is any change, if there is any abuse, and they may not be in even a physical sign. They may not be bleeding or bruises, but you note that when you're washing their private parts, they will jerk or react in a certain way that will tell you that all is not well. Because most of the abuses that happen from nannies and caregivers to these small children, it's because no one noted and a child can't talk. So it's up to you to be more diligent. If the child is moving around, crawling, and they have toys, another sign is how they relate with the toys that you give them. If it's for a girl, maybe if she's always hugging the toys, being nice, that shows that she's just receiving the right form of care. But if she's trying to, slapping the dolly, or if it's a boy, the car, or whatever toy you brought them, if the child is going through abuse, whether physical or sexual, the way they are treated is the way they are going to treat their toy. That's something to look out for. So the way they treat their toy is the way they are treated. So if you find that the child is always throwing it away, the child is trying to poke it, the child shouts at the toy, the child just does weird things, then know that the child is just repeating what is done to them to this toy. So if a child can't talk, watch out for the sign. So as we said, I don't know whether we're going to end without her coming, but so those are some of the way the child is going to disclose. Also, when a child starts to disclose something, maybe when you're trying to set that environment, how to set that environment is first to show them that you're very comfortable with that topic. As a parent, one of the things I say, besides that, love is time. Another thing we need to teach ourselves, it's always to keep a calm face. When your child just shouts or blants out a word or tells you they saw this, they heard this, they watched this in a movie, always keep a calm face. Show them that you are comfortable with the topic, because how you initially react is what determines whether a child will continue telling you or they are going to judge. I think that's wrong. I think I should not be telling my parent that. So they are going to keep it to themselves. But if they see you are comfortable, then they will also be comfortable, because remember, the much information you have about sexual activities is not what your child knows. So if your child just comes and tells you, hey mom, my friend is gay, don't go like, what do you mean gay? Why is your friend? Just keep a calm face. For you, you know the whole extent of what being gay means, but your child is just like a cup. They do not understand. But your reaction is what will create an environment for them to know, and to know whether it's right or wrong, and for them to disclose more information. Maybe they just heard the word gay. They do not know what it means. So how you react will allow you to know how much the child knows, and now you'll be able to guide them based on their age and how much they have been exposed to, guide them on how to understand that topic, and also now put measures that the same exploitation does not continue. In case of abuse, always affirm the child and let them know that you acknowledge that that's a very difficult thing to talk about, and you're there for them. You can even create stories that, I've also been, okay, don't necessarily have to put yourself in the same situation, but you can tell them that it has happened to someone I've helped, so and so also went through that, but there is help. If when you tell me everything, I'm able to put the right measures. Just acknowledge that it's difficult. It's not an easy conversation. If you're having this conversation and you suspect that there's an abuse, remember the 1 hour I was talking, or the 30 minutes I was talking about, make sure it's happening in that time, whereby it's a place where you are not rushed, you're not expecting a phone call, you're not rushing to work. Just make sure you're having it in a very comfortable environment, so that when you tell the child, I know it's difficult and I am here for them, for you actually mean I am here for you. You're not going to be called on the phone, you're not going to receive a text, you're not going to rush to check if maziwa imemwagika. You're actually there, because that moment you break off, when the child tells you this is what happened, then he said this, then he led me here, then you're like, ebu goja kidogo maziwa isimwagike. You cut the flow of things, and those few minutes, you think it's few minutes or seconds to just switch off the gas, the child might decide, you know what, this one is not dependable, I'm not going to continue. So you need just to create an environment where you acknowledge it's difficult and show them that you're committed to actually listen to them, and you are not there to judge them. And of course, they need to know that when they tell you, that you believe them, even though you do not believe them. But I do not see why you can't believe them. Well, teenagers create stories, but in most cases, as a parent, you always, that's our default side. We always believe our children. We always believe children. And if you're a caregiver, could be their mom did not believe them, and so your neighbor's child has come to you. Always believe the child. You may not have evidence, but if the child has spoken to you, always believe them. And even when you're teaching your children about sexual abuse, tell them that when it happens to you, tell until someone believes you. Tell until someone, that's one of the things we have in mentoring, just tell until someone believes you. There is no shame in telling what has happened, especially in family, because in family, if an uncle does what we've seen in our African society, if an uncle has done something, then the grandmother, in most cases, the grandparents will say, no, this one, or the chief will say that this one can be settled at home, and so you'll be told to do 1, 2, 3 things, and then it's okay. But if you tell the child that if they feel they are not safe, the grandma didn't believe them, the auntie didn't believe them, they can tell the teacher, they can even go to the pastor. Tell. In one of the things we learn in parenting is that always let your child have 2 or 3 people who are his safe people. Of course, the mom and the dad, you can add 1 or 2 more people, where the child knows that these ones are the people you can always tell. Those conversations that are too difficult, those conversations that are weird, those times you're not sure what will happen, how people will see you, you can always tell these 2 or 3 people, and these are the people you've taught to always keep a calm face, so that you can know the whole situation as it has happened. So that's all I had prepared. I don't know whether to cut the live, then give her. Thank you for for listening. I thank you for coming to our TED Talk. I hope you've learned something, and have a lovely evening. May God watch over you. May God give you wisdom. I pray that the Holy Spirit is going to quicken your heart and your mind and your spirit in areas where you need to be more vigilant when it comes to your children, or you need to be more sensitive that none of our children will go through abuse. None of our children will go through the trauma, and not just our children, but also children who are in our environment and in our circles of influence, that we will be vigilant, that we shall teach them, and that will be available for them at all times. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful night. God bless you, and